The artist of the day is the Dirty Dancing soundtrack, and I know why now, Steve. I was wrong.
Shocking.
The movie was released on August 21st. You know this one? The Still of the Night?
I know this song, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Dirty Dancing was released on August 21st, 1987. In November, the album would go number one.
Today's my wife's birthday, by the way.
Happy birthday.
We keep talking about August 21st. Happy birthday, Kim.
Your wife shares a birthday with Dirty Dancing.
Being released.
Yeah, basically the birth of the movie.
Yeah, right. Let's go to our guest line.
What year was she born?
Well, then I would be giving her age. And then
Okay. Is she older or younger than Dirty Dancing?
She is older by...
Don't say it. Anything, that's fine.
She's older.
Okay.
She's older. Yes. You're not supposed to give a woman's age.
Yes.
We're joined now by our good friend Mike McAllister from Syracuse on SI. Mike, always great to talk to you. How are you today?
I'm doing well. You were getting dangerously close to me.
I know I was.
Myself from the conversation and not being part of any revealing of a woman's age. I have to remove myself from that.
Yes, I was dancing around it. See what I did there? Dancing around it, Paulie.
Very clever. Very clever.
Before we get into football, let's talk a little bit of basketball off the top. And
Sure.
I know that you looked into, Donnie Freeman making this announcement that he's going to go to IMG. How does this affect recruiting moving forward? And why are we seeing so many of these Cuse recruits going to IMG?
I think part of the reason they're going to IMG is because when you go down there, oftentimes they're not leaving, an academy or one of these prep schools that plays against a bunch of other prep schools that also has some really, really good players on it. They're leaving, the high school that they grew up in, and it would be like the equivalent. So I graduated from Marcellus High School, right? So rather than going to Marcellus High School for my senior year, I transferred to some sort of academy or prep school or something else, because you're going to get, in theory, better coaching, play against better competition, sort of accelerates your development. And we saw that with Buddy Boeheim when he went to Brewster, right? So before he came to Syracuse. That is a trend not just with Syracuse recruits, but nationally. Some do it going into their junior year, some do it for their senior year, some do it even earlier than that. And so Donnie Freeman is sort of continuing that. And with IMG, there seems to be a comfort level between the IMG program and Syracuse, because players that are already committed to Syracuse are going there. It's not that they're going there and then they commit to Syracuse. They're going there afterwards. And you know that if the Syracuse coaches, if they have someone committed, they're not to say involved or directing any of this, but they're aware of what's going on. And oftentimes parents or the recruits themselves will say, hey, if I want to go somewhere, where are some places where the coaching would be good enough to help develop me, but also I'd be playing against, a better level of competition, and the Syracuse coaches are going to give them, their input there. So obviously IMG Academy is one that they feel pretty comfortable with. And, I think from a recruiting standpoint, if you're a Syracuse fan, you're thinking he's going further away from Syracuse. Is that an area of concern? I don't think it is for many of those reasons. So I think you should feel pretty comfortable about where he's going and why he's going there.
Seems like a win-win for everybody involved. One more basketball question. I asked this the other day, and Paulie kind of trolled me. We were talking about the Orange Madness events, the one in Syracuse, the one in Rochester.
Never.
And I said, what do you... what's going to be one thing that you want to see in that Orange Madness setting, realizing it's kind of like NFL preseason games, you got to take it with a grain of salt, but it's going to be our first chance to see the team scrimmaging and on the court for the first time. I said, what are you most looking forward to? And he kind of dismissed me and said, you can't learn anything from these. I'm going to ask you the same question. What, if anything, are you looking to glean from these Orange Madness events that we're going to see in mid-October?
I think first of all, you want to get out healthy. Second of all, it's shocking that Paulie would troll anybody. Third, I think the big thing is you want to see kind of how cohesive they look. Not that, those type of events, as to Paulie's point, they're fun. They're kind of dictated to put on a show. Like, the defense isn't playing real serious defense, so there's not a ton that you can tell, but you can sort of tell from certain standpoints how well the players are getting along with each other, sort of the team chemistry there. And then, some of the new guys like, Naheem McLeod and even JJ to a certain extent, you just kind of want to see a little bit of flashes here and there of some of the things you're hoping they bring to the table. You want to see McLeod, move up and down the court with ease and not look like he's sort of lumbering up and down the court. You want to see him be able to run with the guards when they get out in transition. You want to see if, maybe he can block a couple of shots, even though those things are largely geared towards the offense. And then you want to see JJ, maybe make a couple of plays and do a couple of things that'll, get the crowd excited, make a couple of shots, and maybe get into the lane and either throw it down or set someone else up. Those are the types of things you're really looking for. It's just kind of little flashes here and there of the skill set you think that those guys are bringing to the table.
All right, let's switch gears. Let's talk some football now. And Paulie and I started the show by discussing what we think is the most important game on the schedule. I know we've touched on this with you in the past, that we all, I think, collectively think that Purdue game is really important because you win it, you have a really good chance to start 4-0, and it sets you up for success. Outside of Purdue, what's that next game on the schedule, Mike, that you look at as a potential really big swing game for the 2023 season?
I look at Virginia Tech, and there's two reasons. One, it's where it comes on the schedule. It's right after that stretch where you have Florida State, or you have Clemson first, then you go on the road, you play Florida State and North Carolina. Those are three really tough games. Syracuse could play really good football and lose all three of those games. So if you're on a 3-game skid, you're going into a game against Virginia Tech, who is expected to be a step or two below those other teams. I think many think that they're either on par with Syracuse or perhaps a little bit below what Syracuse is expected to be this coming season. Yes, it's a road game, but to end a 3-game losing streak, sort of reset yourself and get yourself back on track towards that bowl game. If you're 4-0 going into that 3-game stretch, you lose all 3 and you're sitting at 4-3. That game either puts you at 4-4, you've now lost 4 in a row, and you're really starting to question yourself, or you pull off a road win, you get back to 5-3, you're only 1 win away from bowl eligibility with, the easier part of your conference schedule left in front of you, and you feel like you sort of navigated that rough stretch. So I think that's a game that I look at as being extremely important for what they want to accomplish this season.
Yeah, you and I are on the same page. 100% agree on that. When you look at preseason practice, what has stood out to you? I was curious about the tight end position. Do you have any reason to believe, outside of Oronde Gadsden, whatever we consider him, outside of Gadsden, do you see the tight ends that they have getting more involved in the passing game? Is there any reason to believe that we'll see that?
I thought Mahar, before he went down with an injury, had a chance to, just because he's a big body and he is athletic, and so I thought there was a chance that he could perhaps work his way onto the field in certain situations. The interesting guy to me is true freshman David Clement, and I think he's got the ability to be a weapon at some point in his career. I'm not sure they're going to use him much as a true freshman, but he has flashed a little bit in camp, and he's been really physical when he's had to go, when he's had to block. And so I'm wondering if they're going to put him in some situations more as a blocker, which means, you could sort of do some play action type of stuff and perhaps throw it to him in the back of the end zone, occasionally here and there. But largely, I don't think you're going to see anyone that's going to make a major impact on a consistent basis throughout the season.
Since you bring up blocking, we see Elijah Wright is listed as the team's fullback, and we saw, Chris Elmore in a similar role. I mean, Chris Elmore was all over the field, but at times he worked as a fullback and kind of a lead blocker. Do you expect Syracuse to have a fullback on the field on a semi-regular basis to serve as a blocker for LaQuinn Allen and some extra protection for Garrett Schrader?
I don't know how regular it's going to be. I'm not sure it would be something I'd count on as in my base offense. I think Chris Elmore was a little bit unique in what he could do, and I think it's tough to find someone that can be as productive and as selfless as he was throughout his career. But Elijah Wright's someone who played offensive line and defensive line in high school, so he can do both, and he's been with the program for a couple of years, and I think that they're putting him there because he is a bigger body, and it's almost like having another offensive lineman, but as your lead blocker. So I think you're more likely to probably see that in goal line situations, short yardage situations, rather than, spreading everybody out, getting a Rondé Gasson in the slot. You've got, LaQuint Allen next to Schrader. I don't think you're going to see Elijah Wright on the other side of him in some of those situations.
One of the position groups I think a lot of people are excited to see is the defensive backfield, right? They lost a lot of key parts, Jahad Carter, Deuce Chestnut, Garrett Williams, but it seems like they've gotten some really quality reinforcements there. So can you take us through the defensive backfield? Has anybody stood out to you? Have you seen a guy like Miles Farmer to this point? And if so, what stands out to you?
I haven't seen a ton from Farmer, but what stands out to me is, I think they had more talent than people think returning. I think Jeremiah Wilson coming back, I know he briefly entered the portal before withdrawing, but him coming back, I think, is huge. He's been really good this camp so far. I think Isaiah Johnson gives you that veteran presence, but also there aren't a lot of corners that are a legit 6'2", 6'3". He is one. And he was one of the better tacklers in the secondary for Syracuse last season. So I think he brings a pretty good skill set. The safety position is really where I'm kind of intrigued because they lost Jahad Carter. I know they've got Justin Barron coming back. I think a lot is expected of Elijah Clark and him taking a big step forward this season, not being the new guy, but now being, kind of one of the veterans. And, can he realize some of that four-star talent coming out of high school? And then I'm really interested to see what some of these guys that have come in will do. Jaden Gold and Jaden Bellamy. I know, some of them are working at corner as well. And then, Miles Farmer that you mentioned, but they've also got Jaleel Martin who's come in. So they've got a lot of guys that are going to be sort of rotating back there. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. Different guys have rotated in with the first team and the second team at different times, but I think largely they're going to lean on the guys who have been here, the Justin Barrons and the Elijah Clarks of the world, those guys to have really strong seasons and be veteran leaders for them on the defense.
All right, Mike, last question for you. We've spent a lot of time on this show talking about what the ceiling is for this team this year in terms of a win-loss total. And then, that inevitably leads to what is the floor. Give me both ends of the spectrum. What is the worst possible record you could envision this year for the Orange? What's the best record you could envision?
The worst record I could envision is winning 3 games, and those would probably be, the Western Michigan, Army, and Colgate games, and then pretty much losing the rest of your Power 5 games. Because I could see Syracuse playing good football, having some bad injuries, losing some of those games in tough situations, and then it sort of snowballs on you, right? I could see that potentially happening in a worst-case scenario type of prediction. Best case, I think if things break right for Syracuse pulls, let's say they start 4-0 and they're able to pull off an upset against Clemson or one of those, that 3-game stretch, the North Carolina, Florida State, Clemson, you catch someone on an off day. I think expecting them to win all 3 probably isn't very realistic, but if you figure out a way to win 1, I think you've got a chance to get to 9 or 10 wins because the rest of the schedule is very favorable. I know Virginia Tech's on the road, Georgia Tech's on the road, but those are teams that are not, the Clemson and Florida State caliber. And then you've got Wake Forest and Boston College at home. I don't think anyone looks at those teams as juggernauts. And the Pittsburgh game is in New York City. Those games are usually close. So, there's a ceiling, I think, is somewhere probably in the 8 to 10 win range.
All right. As always, great stuff, Mike. We appreciate you coming on. Enjoy what is left of your summer, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. Mike McAllister, publisher of Syracuse on SI. And, by the way, he will be our special guest beginning next week. Again, next Monday, the return of Orange Nation, the TV show on News Channel 9, 7 to 7:30. Mike is going to be a key regular contributor to the show throughout the football season.
He kind of reiterated what we said last week that made Jordan freak out, that the floor on this team is 3 wins.
Yeah.
Like, it's possible.
Right.
You hope it isn't, but there's only 3 wins on this schedule that you look at, and you know they should win and will win.
And that's why it's called worst case scenario.
Yeah, the floor and ceiling.
We're not predicting it, but it's worst case scenario.
Yeah,
If everything goes wrong.
And everybody that's been around Syracuse football for the past 20, 25 years, it's gone that way.
Sure. Well, we've seen it. I mean, we saw that 1-win season, I mean, we saw the Greg Robinson. Right. I was going to say the 1-win season recently, and we saw the Greg Robinson era. So, yes.
Yeah. So the floor is low and the ceiling is high.
Right.
And they'll probably fall somewhere in between the two.
Yes. All right, we're going to hit a timeout. We will wrap up our number 1 next on ESPN Radio.